All right, my BIBLEin365 brothers and sisters, we have arrived at the book of Chronicles. I cannot believe that we are in the middle of August already, and this is absolutely awesome. Now, we're in 2nd Chronicles. We talked about 1st Chronicles earlier, and 2nd Chronicles is critically important because it actually chronicles for us the history of Judah, which of course would be the southern kingdom, and it speaks to us concerning the reign of King Solomon. Now, this is unique and very, very important to your study of the Bible, because if you will take the time to understand certain aspects of 2nd Chronicles, it will widely expand your understanding of the Bible as a whole. Now, this is a very appropriate place for me to give you a little bit of background of the different temples that existed in the past and the ones that, of course, are going to be coming. Of course, you have the tabernacle, which of course is not regarded as a temple. This was the tent that was built first in the wilderness while the nation of Israel had been waiting to move into the promised land. And finally, when the promised land comes and they are there, Solomon's temple is the very first one. I like to call it David's temple, but there's a lot back and forth. And then there is the temple of Zerubbabel, but you need to understand that temple is still kind of a revamping or re-erection of Solomon's temple. And then we get to Herod's temple, which of course is regarded as a much larger and bigger version of what existed in the time of Solomon. However, that temple, interestingly enough, was not believed to have had the Ark of the Covenant inside of it. Now, that's a whole other story. And the reason why I'm bringing all of this stuff up, because when we get into the construction of the temple, we get some really good ideas of critical components related to the nation of Israel and the history of the nation of Israel, and actually what's to come in end times Bible prophecy. We talk about that a lot. So when you look at 2nd Chronicles, chapters 1 through 9, you are talking about the temple and, of course, all of the reign of King Solomon. Now, there are some very important aspects of 2nd Chronicles chapter 7 that I need you to look at, because it is a widely misunderstood chapter and it is misquoted quite a bit. We're going to learn a lot about prayer. We're going to learn a lot about repentance. We're going to learn a lot about why we should be people with a contrite heart, and we'll learn a lot about government and why it does matter when morality exists within a government. Now, within these chapters, I want you to understand there's some valuable insight that you're going to be able to gain. You're going to learn about some things that maybe you had never seen before, because certain aspects of 2nd Chronicles gives an entirety of the history of the southern kingdom and does not talk at all about the northern kingdom. Now, 1st Chronicles gives us a lengthy genealogy and it gives us a lot of information about the northern kingdom. You don't get virtually any information about that in 2nd Chronicles. Now, once you get to chapter 10 of 2nd Chronicles, we get to the reign of King Rehoboam, and you need to spend time studying his reign. This, of course, is from 2nd Chronicles chapter 10 all the way to chapter 12. And here's the reason why you need to know this. You need to understand his reign because he was the last king to rule a unified Israel. It was under his rulership, under his leadership, that the nation of Israel was broken up into two major pieces, the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. I talk about this at length pretty regularly throughout these summaries. And so there's a lot of very good information there. And Rehoboam reigned from 931 BC to 913 BC. Now that becomes pretty critical because the length of his reign helps us to also establish some of the things that happened in the northern kingdom. And I do want to talk a little bit about the northern kingdom when we get into some other books of the Bible where we start talking about the application of some of the history that existed there. But it is a very, very important thing for you to study and understand the division that took place as a result of the terrible counsel that Rehoboam chose to listen to. Of course, Rehoboam being the son of Solomon, and this is when there was a lot of back and forth between Rehoboam and Jeroboam, who was the rebellion leader of the northern kingdom and actually eventually ruled as its first king. So there's a lot of very interesting stuff there. And then, of course, we are going to get into 2 Chronicles 13. Abijah is a very interesting king. Now, he only ruled for 2 years, but there are some very interesting and critical pieces of information you need to get from 2 Chronicles chapter 13. When we get into 14 through 16, I want you to develop a much clearer understanding of Asa. If you do not know who Asa was, then you're going to struggle a little bit with being able to understand the kings that were sandwiched before him and after him for several different reasons, okay? Then we learn about Jehoshaphat, Joram, which, by the way, Joram is an interesting character. It would behoove you to spend some time getting to know him, and then Ahaziah. Now, keep this in mind. I want you to take a look at the reign of Jehoshaphat and the reign of Ahaziah at the same time, okay? Very important. That means I want you to take a close look at 2 Chronicles 17 through 20. Then I want you to skip 21, and I want you to look at the beginning of 22, then go back to 21, where you're going to learn a little bit about Joram, which becomes also some very interesting stuff. Then spend some time getting into Athaliah. Don't spend too much time learning about her because, quite frankly, you'll feel dirty after reading about her, just about as dirty as you'll feel reading about Jezebel. But Athaliah is an interesting person in that when you begin to study concerning who she is, you'll realize that Joash comes as a result, and then, of course, Amaziah after that, and then Uzziah. Now, spend some time understanding Uzziah, because if you want to understand Isaiah, understanding Uzziah is going to be core and is going to be critical for your learning, right? And then, of course, it chronicles Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. Of course, Hezekiah is the one that sires Manasseh, who, of course, Manasseh was an absolutely terrible king. Then we get into Ammon, Josiah, Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, Zedekiah, who of course was the last king ruling. But the one that I want you to pay attention to the most, the one that means the most to me in all of these kings besides Solomon and Rehoboam, is going to be Josiah, okay? Learn about Josiah. This was a king that was spectacular and interesting, very unique about some of the things that we can gain from this. And if you really want to learn about how righteousness will change a country, then read about Josiah. Also, look at the end of Manasseh's life. Interesting stuff that's there. By the way, Manasseh, who was the son of Hezekiah, who would have never been born had Hezekiah's life not been extended by the Lord, was the person believed to have traditionally killed Isaiah by cutting him in half. So kind of an interesting thing there. A lot of good facts, but pay attention to some of those things and you will get a really good understanding of the rest of the Bible. Now, I want to tell you this because this might seem like a little bit of overkill, but if there's any book amongst the Kings, the Chronicles, or Samuel that you should probably study more than any other book, it's going to be 2 Chronicles, because 2 Chronicles is going to give you insight into the proverbial fork in the road that started leading into the world of captivity. Because right after 2 Chronicles is where we begin to get into the discussions of the captivity of the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, and it becomes very useful to you to be able to understand these kings and the history related to all of that, okay? So, as usual, if you want some in-depth teaching on the book of 2 Chronicles, I have a very extensive teaching library on 2 Chronicles. You can get that on jamescadiz.com. There's all kinds of other great resources available to you, all the Bible teaching for free, thousands and thousands of Bible studies available to you there. And there are many other places online and local radio listings where we have all of our Bible studies available to you guys. We're glad to serve you. You are doing a great job. Keep on fighting the good fight, folks. God bless you.